and now we have a multi-million studio type thing. Thanks to Mr. Shaw. Okay, so Mr. Shaw, I noticed that the 7th grade has their own lunch policy. Can you explain it?
Sure. We've started a program inside 7th grade where students actually have the opportunity to work their way into a much more relaxed lunch. It's based on academics, it's based on behavior, and it's based on attendance. So in other words, if all the students do all of their homework that week, they do all of their, they don't get they don't get any citations or referrals, and they have perfect attendance, then they can go to first lunch, which is a very fun, relaxed, laid back. They can sit where they want. We'll pop popcorn on certain days. We'll be showing movies. There's different intramural. So it's an academic incentive program to have kids do their work. And some people were a little concerned because they were like, oh, you gotta be smart. No, you don't have to be smart. You just have to do the right thing. Do your homework, be in school, and don't get in any trouble. So that's first lunch. Second lunch is a little less fun. It's a little more restricted, and third lunch is the most restrictive with assigned seating, et cetera. So it's designed around academics and behavior, and kids really seem to love it. It's a lot of work, but they seem to be having fun.
Okay. Well, will the 6th and 8th grade have the same thing next year?
Yeah, they will. We're looking at also if possibly we could bring it online. There's a lot of bugs that we're still having to work out, like during that time period there are no other PE classes, so the extra students can go across during the 6 and 8 time slots. PE classes are in there, so that's one of the issues. Plus, you reset every week what lunch you have, so then it's just a lot of work on the team, and we're evaluating it if we can do it full scale, but we definitely will have it online for everyone by next year. We're just trying to let 7th grade work out all the problems before we spread it to other grades.
Okay. So, is your job hard to be a principal?
Is it hard? I'll say this, it is. It's a very challenging job. Every day is different. Every day it's a fast-paced job, but it's also a very rewarding job. I have a lot of wonderful students that I get to see and interact with on a daily basis, and I really like the opportunity to be able to make an impact and to learn from all the kids, because y'all are so smart. You teach me stuff every day. And so it's challenging, hard. Yeah, there's days it's real hard. There are days where I go home and I'm really exhausted and I think, oh my goodness, be careful what you wish for. But there are far more days that are much better. Mostly it's the adults, don't tell anyone, but it's the adults that give me a hard time, more so than the kids. I know, shame on them.
So if you were to be anything but a principal as your career, what would you be?
Well, I'd like to be a singer, but I can't sing. And so, if I wasn't a principal, what would I do? If I wasn't a principal, I'd have probably gone into law. My undergraduate was in biology, and I originally was going to go do med school until I realized, wait a second, I'm not med school material. A lot of smart people there, and they spend a lot of time in school. And so, if I didn't do law, I'd probably, right now, if I had $1 million, I'd retire and go work in the lawn and garden section of Lowe's or Home Depot. I guess my dream job would be probably landscaping, but my wife wants me to make sure I make a certain amount of money, and so maybe principalship pays a little bit more. So, plus it's the chance to be with kids. Where would I be with kids? If I didn't do that, I'd probably have to be like maybe a coach, a recreation, parks and recreation would be where I'd be, and I'd be a coach.
Okay. So, if you were to, are you harsh on students that
Very harsh. Oh, sorry.
get in trouble a lot? Like, do you yell and scream at them or something?
I am not a yeller and screamer. Most students, no one wakes up and says, I want to be bad today. You know what I'm saying? And nobody wakes up and says, I want to fail. I want to be a failure. Generally, it's about people making wrong decisions. You know what I mean? And so, for me, it's about helping students and people understand what the right decision is in every situation. like I said, so am I harsh? No. I mean, am I stern and strict? Sure I am. I mean, I think there's a set of rules that we all have to live by. And the discipline I deal with primarily is the discipline of the adults. You know, I like to use the metaphor as an assistant principal is to the students, the principal is to the adults. Now, there are times I work with students, generally they're the very extreme cases that are actually going out for discipline hearings. And so I'll work there. And there's times I talk to students all the time, but I wouldn't say I'm harsh. I'm very, very clear cut. I mean, you know, but you know, I'm not. I also really like students, and I evaluate everybody case by case, situation by situation. So I'm not necessarily saying that every situation is the same. So I wouldn't say I'm harsh.
Okay. Would you say, like, if you had a student in your office and he couldn't really understand what he was doing because he was crazy or something, and would you find like some of your disciplines or whatever you may call them a little too strict?
You know, people have asked me about that. There have been times that we've administered discipline that, yes, that people consider it too strict. They've used the term, the punishment should fit the crime. You know, there are times where we, even whether it's adults or kids, we're going to have to agree to disagree. Meaning, you're not going to believe me, and I'm not going to believe you. And so there have been times people have told me that. Generally, they're few and far in between. You know, there have been times where I've been in some very serious disciplinary incidents, but once you administer the consequence and the behavior changes, then really everybody has a clean, fresh start. So are there times where I think it's too strict? I personally never think it's too strict. I mean, but now I'll say this, discipline's very subjective. I mean, it is the call of the administrator, but what's important for me is to listen to everyone and both sides of every story. There are times I've changed a discipline that's been administered by the assistant principals because I disagree. Most of the time, though, they're pretty right on.
So, what made you want to become a principal?
You know, I'd worked with kids in my church youth group for 10 years, and then I decided, man, I really enjoy this. So then I started teaching. But once I was teaching, there were decisions that were made that were outside the classroom that I realized if I'm really going to be able to influence that decision-making process, then I have to be on the administrative side. And so I moved into the administrative part and have enjoyed it very much. I miss the classroom a lot. Classroom is a lot of fun because you see kids on a regular basis. Administration's fun as well in the fact that you do get to see a whole lot more students than your regular classroom. So really, to answer your question, I got into administration and to teaching because I wanted to have an impact with kids.
Okay, well, thanks for the interview. This is Bulldog Talks.